you will look to those who are older for wisdom, and especially to those who have something in their lives that you aspire to. Okay, because a lot of, some of us were older and our lives are actually a mess in some sort of areas, right? Like some people, they never seem to have matured, even though they've had all this life experience, right? They've never. So look to those that when you look at their lives, you go, man, they've got something that I want and I desire, and spend time with those people and ask those people questions. How did they do it? What are they doing now in their lives? What do they see in your life, that you could learn from them? Do they have a strong faith or strong biblical knowledge or life wisdom or a good marriage or whatever it might be? Learn from them. Do you struggle with finances, managing your finances? Look to somebody. Okay, I see an amen. I see a hand. I see that hand. No. Look to somebody who does a good job managing their finances and ask them what they do to do that. I hope that, though, no matter your age, you will aspire to godly leadership. And once we see that there are no boundaries to leadership, the next thing that we have to do is we have to ask why. Why do we lead? And, working with middle schoolers, Lance and I do that quite a bit with scouts. It's interesting to watch how they respond to leadership. And one of the things I like about the scouting organization is that they give these middle schoolers opportunities to lead, right? So we have elections and they change roles every 6 months. And it's really interesting to watch what happens when somebody takes on a leadership role in middle school. Okay? I don't know if you can imagine what might take place. I remember, I was running for student council president. I did the posters all over the place. And I was kind of going for, this title, right? I'm not sure I really understood what it meant, but it sounded exciting to have this title of student council president, right? So here are these guys, middle schoolers and high schoolers, that they get these positions, and the very first thing I noticed that they do is we have this desk up at the front, and it seems to be the position desk, right? So as soon as they get a position, all of them go and they sit behind the desk because that means that I'm a leader now, And all of a sudden that desk represents something. And it doesn't matter if they even have to have anything to do back there. They're just sitting back there is all they're doing. And not necessarily leading anything, but there's this certain sense of hey, now I have a position, so I sit behind the desk, right? And so I kind of share that as sort of an extreme example, But the truth is that even though we can laugh at that, there are many people, even in churches, who their leadership is out of selfish ambition. It's of being up in front or being in control, or it's being seen, right? And in our culture, most ambition is very self-focused. It's about what I can get out of it. And, to have ambition or desire to be in leadership is not a bad thing per se. 1 Timothy 3:1, Paul told Timothy, he's here's a trustworthy saying. Whoever aspires to be an overseer desires a noble task. It's a good thing. It's not bad. It's a noble position, honorable. As long as your motives are in the right place. Jeremiah 5:5. It says this. Should you then seek great things for yourself? Do not seek them. And the Lord was addressing through Jeremiah those whose motives were selfish about what they could get out of it. Oswald Sanders, he says this. Ambition which centers on the glory of God and the welfare of the church is a mighty force for good. See, there is a good ambition. That's ambition that wants to see God break through, that wants to see God do things in people's lives. And where our leadership is focused on that. I don't know about you, but I'm just telling you right now that that is the type of leadership that I want to have as pastor of this church. That at times I have to get out of the way of my own thoughts, my own ideas, and just go, Lord, what is it that you really want to do here? Because I can have my plans, but only your plans are the ones that are going to succeed, That's where I just want you to know that's where I'm at. That's where I want to be. So the honest truth is that, if our goal in leadership is to point people to Christ and to represent him, though, it's also going to be tough. It's going to be hard work. And it's sometimes going to demand our all to follow Jesus and influence this world for him. Christian leadership isn't truly about leading or having this title or position of authority so much as it's about serving others and reflecting the kingdom of God into this world. Can I get an amen to that one? Amen. Mark 10:42. This is what Jesus said. Jesus called them all together, his disciples. And he said, "You know that those who are regarded as rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their high officials exercise authority over them." So in other words, they're under this Roman government, right? Under the thumb of the Roman government, these Jews are. And he's saying that, their rulers lord it over them. Lording over means telling people what to do, demanding things. Like, this is the way it's going to be, right? It's top-down, authoritative leadership. And their high officials exercise authority. He said, not so with you. Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant. And whoever wants to be first must be slave of all. I don't know about you, but I kind of squirm a little bit because Jesus uses the word slave. Not even servant. He's like the slave of all. What? That's a yucky word. But boy, is he talking about a position of lowness, right? That in Christian leadership, we don't put ourselves up here. We first put ourselves down here. And it's not easy. True service has a cost. Mark 10:38. Jesus knew that cost more than anyone, right? I imagine that's what he had in mind when he asked his leaders in training an important question. See, you remember James and John, the sons of thunder, the sons of Zebedee, and they're like jockeying for position. Hey, in this kingdom, we want to be like right there with you, Jesus, like on your right hand and at your left hand. Give us that position of authority. And Jesus asks them, "Can you drink the cup that I drink, or be baptized with the baptism that I baptize with?" What? What are you talking about? Jesus is always doing that, isn't he? Like, why are you talking about a cup and baptism and that kind of thing? He's saying, are you willing? Do you think you're really able to not just take the position of authority, but pay the cost that I am about to pay? Because I am not putting myself up here. I am making myself nothing down here. And he humbled himself to the cross. That's what he's saying. I've had some amazing leaders who paid the cost that I've seen in my lifetime. Some of them were single for a long time. And they were single because they wanted to serve Jesus above all else. I know one guy in Mongolia, he's been single his whole life just for that. He desires a spouse, but he's like, but my life is all about Jesus, and I'm going to serve him first. I know many who have gotten by on very little. Like they took major pay cuts. The ministry that I used to work for, we had these people in high CEO, COO positions that basically took this huge cut in their salary to come and work for a ministry. Why? Because they wanted to serve Jesus first. I've known many people who have moved to new places to start a work because God called them away from their comfort zones. The Abraham life, right? Some have traveled great distances so that those who have never heard the gospel before in their lives had a chance to hear for the first time. And it makes me think of the Moravian church in the 1700s. I don't know if you've heard these stories before, but it's said that about 1 of every 92 people in the Moravian church went overseas to serve as missionaries. All over the world. This is before missions was even a thing. And there's a story about these two guys, Johann Dober and David Nitschmann. And these two young Moravian brothers, they were from Germany, and they were called to minister to African slaves on the island of St. Thomas and St. Croix in the Danish West Indies. And they were like, how are we going to do this? How are we going to get there? And they were like, you know what? Because at first they wouldn't let them go. And they're like, we're going to sell ourselves as slaves to be able to go. And you know what? They were told, you guys can't. We won't let you go as slaves because of the color of your skin. And so they took their own trades, and they still went. They still went there. They had to fight. They didn't even go to court to be able to go to the islands. And they ended up going there so that they could minister to these slaves and share the gospel with them. There are people who have packed their stuff in coffins to be able to go overseas. Again, these are kind of like the extremes, right? But I share the extremes because sometimes God isn't even asking us to go to extremes. He's asking us to do even the little things that we see in front of us. And we have to be willing to say, yes, Lord, I will do that. Because you are worth it. We don't have to go overseas to serve. We have opportunities of servant leadership all around us. Whether it's to serve in simple ways, like, taking out the garbage, teaching the kids, or to take positions of leadership in our community as business people or community service organizations. The pastor that I told you guys about earlier, he was such a role model for me. Because he went out and he was like, I'm not just going to be a pastor in this community. I'm going to be a person who serves in this community. And he went and he joined a community organization so that he could get to know people in the community, invite them to be a part of the kingdom of God, not just the people in the church. Such a role model, We have opportunities like that. I talked to Polly last night. A lot of you guys know Paulette. She was part of our church for a long time before she moved to Alexandria. And, the thing about Polly, she had a nice job, and she asked to go part-time at her job, which was a risk, by the way. She asked to go part-time so that she could go over and work at the banquet. Because she loved to go over to the banquet. She and her husband used to go on dates to the banquet so that they could sit there and eat with these amazing people that she loved so much. She ended up taking that job there, and she said that, she's like, Kevin, when I go to the banquet, it's like, for me, it's like getting a hug from God. And I'm just so in awe of Polly and her heart to serve and to be a leader in that community there. And to serve her heart out there because she feels like she's getting a hug from God when she does that. That really challenges me. And despite the challenges, we often find that it's true.